Okay, so right now I'm going to show you how I use these micro pins to do a grid for a checker pattern. We're going to do it on this cloth here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use a little piece of masking tape as a guide. I'm going to use the grid on my cutting board here to help me make sure this is straight. And then I'm going to cut this a little bit thinner. You're probably better off using a ruler to get this straight line, but you make use of what you have. So I'm gonna get this lined up to about the length I want it. I'm gonna make sure it's square. I can use these cut marks at the end to help measure. Out. So I end up with this little strip. I'm going to use this to wrap around the very bottom. Okay, and now we're going to use a micro set pen to draw the basically guidelines for a checkerboard pattern. I am using one of the thicker ones for this. I think this one's a 0.4 millimeter because I want the black to come through when the job's finished. So there's like a nice border between all the checker marks. What I'm going to do is using the masking tape as a guide, draw a black line right at the edge. We're gonna go slow, we're gonna take our time. The better we do this first time through, the less cleanup work there is. Okay. And just like that, our first line is done. Okay, and now we're going to use the exact same concept to do the vertical lines in this checkerboard. Again, I'm using a tiny piece of masking tape as a guide. You can do this freehand, a lot of people do. I just like the guide, especially when the cloth is not a perfect square, when it's flowy, when it's like this, when one side's bigger than the other. It's just going to help keep the line straight. So I'm going to eyeball everything, potentially get it wrong. Okay, so we're just going to make our line. We're going to remove our grid. We're going to go to the other side of that line. We're going to take our time. Just like that. Get it right where we want it. Again, this will save us time later. The less we have to clean up, the better. Draw another vertical line. And repeat. And we're just gonna keep doing this all the way up the side. And we're just gonna keep doing this all the way up the side. I'm gonna stop right there because there is gonna be some distortion. We want that to be at the very top. So we're gonna stop, do the one side, we're gonna do the other, and then we're gonna deal with the distortion after. Okay, so I did the other side on camera, off camera. Okay, so I did the other side off camera to save a little time. Basically use the same technique. I will point out my mistakes. You see parts of this grid where I bled a little bit. It's just because I kept the pin there too long. I was too slow on my strokes. If you just go fast and clean, you're not gonna get a lot of bleeding. It's gonna turn out looking more solid than paintbrush. I'm gonna have to go back in and clean all that by brush, which is easy to do. This covers up very easily, but it's just time. If you do it right the first time, you know, you save yourself the effort. So what we have left is the top, and there is gonna be a little bit of distortion here. About just the way the cloth works. So we're just gonna do one side at a time and just get it closer until we decide this is about as close we're gonna get. I'm gonna do one side here. I'll try to square this up a little now that he's on top. Make a line. And go down here and do one. Make a line. So you see we have a bit of distortion there, but honestly it's not bad. It's gonna look really good. It kind of works because it's curved anyways. And now we have a grid that we are going to fill in with our blue paint. Okay, at this point we don't have much to do except for color in grid we started. Be sure to thin your paints for this. Use a really small brush and just go very slowly, very carefully. One tip I have for you is when you fill in these squares, start from the middle and work your way out. And that way you won't get into places where you don't want the paint to be. Because that first touch of the brush, the paint's gonna push out a little bit. like that. And now we gotta make sure it's done for all of them. Okay, so you do that for a little while, and then you should have a pretty solid checkerboard, ready for a little bit of shading, probably a little bit of cleanup. Obviously, you could have done the outline with the paintbrush with a little bit of black ink, but I think you'd have a harder time keeping the line straight, keeping the width of the stroke the same. This is definitely going to be an easier method for beginners and can help bring the quality of your miniature to the next level. So the next trick with these little micro line pins is probably my favorite one. We're going to use these small pins to make a intricate hand design on the surcoat of this knight. So for this one, we are going to just draw a very simple blue line up the white bottom of the surcoat there. I am using a 0.3 millimeter size pin. Different size pins can do different things, so definitely do a bit of experimenting. Let's see what we can do. Keep in mind, this is not a flat surface, and these bumps are hard to go over, so when you make your marks, be very deliberate and have a steady hand, and that'll help keep a decent shape going. If you make a small error, you can usually go over it again with the pin like I just did there. That'll help smooth out the lines you're drawing. And remember, if needed, you can always go back and do touch-ups with a paintbrush. These pens do cover up pretty easily with acrylic paints. I definitely recommend practicing on paper first, maybe finding an image on the internet to reference, so you can get the shape you're going for. To do leaves, just a quick back and forth motion like I just did gives it a nice leafy shape. And then you just keep on growing the vines, making sure it's curved and interesting until you're happy with it. And now we're going to apply the same concept to the other side, making very deliberate, curvy, and interesting lines to make this vine crawl up the surcoat of this knight. And we'll just keep adding on to it little by little until we're happy with it as well. This side is going to require just a little bit of touch up. I did struggle a bit over that one bump in his robe, his surcoat, whatever that is. But again, these cover up very easy. By the time I'm done, nobody's going to know. And we're just going to finish up, add a few more leaves, and call it done. And there you have it. Intricate detail on your miniature that would be very hard to do with a paintbrush, but much, much easier with these little micro pens. Home stretch. For this last tip, I'm going to show you how I use these micro pens to make small text for scrolls, books, or anything else that requires words on a small miniature. So for this work, I'm going to be using the Micron 005 pen. This is the smallest one that I can find. I think it might be the smallest one they sell. I think it's a 0.2 millimeter pen tip, so you can get real fine detail into the little spaces. I'm going to attempt to do some interesting things with this, maybe put a small grill on the page, add a little interest. So I'm going to try to do it on paper a few times, try to get it right. Again, if you mess up, these can be covered up with acrylic paints, your normal Citadel, whatever you use, paints very easily. In fact, I recorded this video once. My recording didn't work, so I painted over my work, and now I'm doing it again. But definitely practice. Get what you need. I'm also going to do a little bit of text here. This is a little bit bigger than what can be on my miniature, but you'll know instinctively to make smaller lines when you're on a smaller surface. So let's see what I can do. It's going to be hard to show me doing this, but I'll do the best I can. Hopefully you have a little handle like I do. Keep your hand something to brace against, that'll help a lot. And then we're just going to very carefully start adding ink to model. We're going to start with the grail, working it just a little bit. If I mess up real bad, we'll just paint over that one spot, no big deal. But hopefully I can get a pretty good shape out of this. Next, we're going to start adding little squiggles for text on the page. We're going to try to make it even across. And try not to make it into columns if we can avoid it. Random lengths is going to end up looking better than uniform columns. One page down, one to go. Just like that, ink on your scrolls or textbooks in a very easy manner. It's going to look great on the tabletop. It's going to add another dimension to your work. So here's the finished model. We use these micro pens for 3 tricks. We did the checkerboard, we added an intricate design on their surcoat, and we added some text to the back. These are some high-grade details that you can add to your miniatures very fast, and all it takes is the purchase of a few of these micro pens. Thank Thanks for watching.